Hey there, baseball fans. It's Mitch Gatsky, and this is episode number 23 of Ducks on the Pod. We continue our postseason push today with the NLDS previews. I'm going to have my good friend and our Cubs correspondent, Reed Mouse, on the show later on to talk about their matchup with the Washington Nationals. Also got to show some love to the Arizona Diamondbacks for their crazy win over the Colorado Rockies in that NL wildcard game. And we're going to take a look at their coming series against the Los Angeles Dodgers as well. So let's get right into it. We start off with the Chicago Cubs and the Washington Nationals. The history lesson: the Nationals took 2 of 3 at Wrigley over the weekend of August 4th through the 6th. The two teams split a 4-game set in Washington back on June 26th through the 29th. The Nats have outscored the Cubs 39-28 in 7 games this season. The marquee matchup is going to be, for me, the Nationals versus their history. Because every year it's the same old story with the Washington Nationals. You know the narrative by now. The team is in win now mode. The window is closing. They've never been better positioned to win than they are right now. The blend of young stars and veteran contributors is perfect. They just haven't been able to get over the hump. This group is still looking for its first postseason series win after taking NLDS losses in 2012, 2014, and 2016. Now, normally I don't put much into this sort of stuff. Teams turn over, players come and go, and things are totally different from year to year. In this case, though, something seems to be going on. There seems to be something behind this. And the only way to get past this thing is to go out and win 3 games. Unfortunately for Washington, it's not going to be easy. They're matched up against the defending champs. The Nats are relatively healthy with Bryce Harper and Max Scherzer on the roster and supposedly ready to go. The supporting cast is better than ever. Ryan Zimmerman, Daniel Murphy, and Anthony Rendon have been top-notch all year. And the longtime thorn in the team's side, its bullpen, has finally been sorted out. So the time is now for the Washington Nationals, as it has been for the past 5 years. Watch out for Washington's top 3 starters. Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Gio Gonzalez all have sub-3 ERAs. They're 3 of the top 7 in baseball in that category. They've all won at least 15 games. Scherzer actually was 16. Scherzer also only one of 4 guys with a whip under 1. Strasburg is 5th at 1.02, and Gonzalez is 15th in the majors at 1.18. Still a very good mark. These 3 have combined for 660 strikeouts in 577 innings this year, and they faced the Cubbies in consecutive games on June 26, 27, and 28. Gonzalez went first. He took the loss in a 6-inning outing in which he gave up just 1 run despite walking 5 batters. That's because he struck out 8, and he only gave up 2 hits, one of those a leadoff home run by Wilson Contreras. Scherzer was next. He won, also going 6 and giving up just 2 hits. He walked no one and struck out 6. The run came on a Chris Bryant triple after Scherzer hit Anthony Rizzo, who was leading off that day. Strasburg got the ball the next day. He went 7, striking out 13, allowing only 4 hits, including a 2-run homer by Contreras. Scherzer and Strasburg picked up wins while Gonzalez was stuck with a loss that he didn't deserve. And looking at the way that these 3 pitched against the Cubs in that series back in June, it has to excite Nationals fans and scare the hell out of Cubs fans. Good starting pitching has been at a premium so far here in the postseason. The Nats, at least on paper, don't have much to worry about in that department. Strasburg gets the call in Game 1 with Scherzer still nursing a right hamstring injury. Looks like the plan is for him to throw a bullpen here on Thursday, and if all is well, he'll be the Game 2 starter. If not, he'll be pushed back to Game 3. If your ace needs an extra day's rest, it's nice to have a number 2 who's damn near an ace, ready to step in And if your ace needs a couple extra days, it's really nice to have a number 3 who's pitched better than most teams' number 2. That's where manager Dusty Baker is at right now. Obviously, it'd be nice to have the best right-handed pitcher in the National League go for you in Game 1. But if you're going to be forced into using a backup plan, it doesn't get much better than this. Other news and notes, Washington turned their weakness into a strength in the lead up to the trade deadline back in July. Brandon Kintzler, Ryan Madsen, and Sean Doolittle have all been money since coming over, and the Nats can now lock down games with the best of them. The question is, who can Baker bring in from the pen to bridge the gap between his stellar starters and his newly lights-out 7, 8, 9 guys? Daniel Murphy transformed in front of our eyes during the Mets' run to the World Series in 2015. His team came up short, but that month changed his career. Since then, he's been a .334 hitter through 2 full seasons. His playoff numbers are off the charts. .351, .430, .662 with 7 homers and 17 driven in. All that in just 19 games and 74 at-bats. He's what they call a professional hitter, and he turns it up in October. I'm really looking forward to watching him go to work. Kyle Hendricks, John Lester, Jose Quintana. Can these guys stack up with the 3 starters the Nationals will roll out there in this series? Reed's going to be on later. I'll let him get more in-depth on this. I'll just say that right now, as you look at it, Chicago is at a distinct disadvantage in the starting pitching department. Bryce Harper is going to be the biggest storyline coming into this series. Against the Cubs in 2017, he is 10 for 30 with 2 doubles, a homer, and 3 driven in. He has struck out 10 times. But that's just the way the game's played now. High risk, high reward. He is 3-18 since his return from the DL. He missed 42 games with a knee injury. If he's healthy, that's just another feared hitter in the middle of this lineup that really did just fine without him. Last season, Jason Hayward came over to Chicago on a pretty hefty contract. The Cubs would later sign Dexter Fowler to a 1-year deal in what seemed like a totally unnecessary roster move. Well, how glad are they that they made that move? Hayward was a huge disappointment, to say the least. Fowler had the best year of his career and solidified the leadoff spot for Joe Maddon. And now this year, Fowler moved on to St. Louis, and the Cubs were without a true leadoff man again. They began the year with an unconventional solution in Kyle Schwarber. It did not go well. Anthony Rizzo has led off. Wilson Contreras has led off. The Cubs used 5 different leadoff men in their last 6 games of the regular season. And the only guy who made 2 appearances at the top of the lineup during that time was John Jay, who's been a godsend for the Cubs, a team that spent the entire first half of the season searching for its identity. Now, Jay doesn't hit for much power, but that's fine. The Cubs have plenty of boppers in the middle of the order. What they really needed was a guy who could get on base. Fowler got on a .393 clip last year, and that makes life so much harder on opposing pitchers who now have to focus on Bryant and Rizzo at the dish with a runner on base. Jay has about 80 fewer at-bats than Fowler did in 2016. He still has an OBP up above 370, which has helped the Cubs' offense exponentially. What John Jay does, it isn't flashy, it isn't real sexy, but it's crucial, and without him, the Cubs might not have made it this far. Let's do some home run picks. In Game 1, I'm going to go Jason Hayward and Daniel Murphy. Hayward is hitting .405 with a home run in 37 career at-bats against Strasburg. And Murphy has 4 hits and 15 at-bats against Hendricks, and 3 of the 4 are home runs. Game 2, Chris Bryant and Matt Wieters. I'm going with Bryant here, assuming that Gonzalez, not Scherzer, will go for the Nats in this one. Now, Wieters has great numbers against John Lester, .314 average in 51 at-bats. No home runs, but that'll change in Game 2. In Game 3, Ryan Zimmerman and Ben Zobrist. Zimmerman crushed left-handed pitching this year to the tune of a .331, .385, .654 triple slash with 10 dingers and 30 driven in. I'll take those numbers with Jose Quintana tabbed to get the ball for Chicago. Now, Zobrist has just 5 hits and 25 at-bats against Scherzer, but 3 of the 5 have landed on the other side of the fence. Whether Scherzer goes in Game 2 or he's pushed back to start Game 3, Zobrist will take him for a ride. Game 4, Bryce Harper and Anthony Rizzo, 2 of the best power bats in the game. Why wouldn't one or both of them find a way to go deep in an elimination game? Game 5, Chris Bryant and Daniel Murphy. Bryant still had a hell of a season, even if he didn't quite match what he did last year. He's a fun guy to root for, and I'm predicting he goes yard at least a couple times in this series. Murphy has been a force in the postseason in his career. I gave you the numbers earlier. Don't be shocked when he adds to those already impressive totals. As far as a prediction, I'm going to have to go with the Nationals in 5. I think they finally get over the hump here and conquer that playoff series demon. The Cubs can bash their way into making this a long series, and it'll certainly be entertaining, but I have some serious doubts about their pitching right now, and I just can't go with a team whose pitching I don't have much faith in. Let's head out west now for the matchup between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The history lesson here, I mean, the D-backs had to beat the Colorado Rockies, a team they saw 19 times during the regular season, to earn their way into this division series where they'll face another team they've already seen 19 times this summer. First of all, we should take a deep breath to collect ourselves after that wild card game Wednesday night. Arizona hit 4 triples, 2 from a light-hitting shortstop and 1 from a setup guy who'd never collected an extra base hit before. MVP candidate Paul Goldschmidt clubbed a 3-run homer in the first to give his team an early lead. Arizona actually got out to a 6-0 start, but the Rockies would not go away, and they kept the pressure on throughout. Nolan Arenado and my home run pick Trevor Story went back-to-back in the 8th inning. Arenado's was an absolute bomb to left center. I've never seen one hit all the way up there at Chase Field. It was picture-perfect example of front side hitting. His back foot was literally off the ground when he made contact. It was just beautiful. Through grit and timely hitting, though, the Diamondbacks found a way to win. So now what? Well, they'll take heart in knowing that they've won 11 of the 19 meetings with the Dodgers. They've hit 32 dingers and scored 99 runs in those 19 games. Conversely, the Dodgers left the yard 18 times and scored only 71 runs. Those numbers are a good look into this series. I think the higher scoring these games are, the more of a chance I give the Arizona Diamondbacks. The marquee matchup here is going to be Clayton Kershaw versus whoever Torey Lovullo decides to hand the ball in Game 1. Arizona's ace, Zach Greinke, started the wild card game. He threw 58 pitches to get through 3 2/3. The number 2 guy, Robbie Ray, came in relief later in the game. He needed only 34 pitches to record 7 outs of his own. Now, number 3 is Taijuan Walker, and though he's had a good season and has a sky-high ceiling as far as talent and potential are concerned, he's never made a postseason start, and I'm not sure he's really the guy you want to go toe-to-toe with Kershaw. So do you go with Ray because he's somewhat fresh? Do you opt with your best pitcher in Greinke on short rest, or do you just trust the young guy, Taijuan Walker? Whoever it is, they're going to have to be more than on top of their game because Kershaw faced the Snakes twice this summer. They managed only 6 hits in 51 at-bats, 1 double, 3 walks. They scratched out just 1 run. Kershaw K'd 19. Arizona likes to outslug you. That's how they win games. You saw it on Wednesday night. And when they can't do that, things get interesting. And without knowing who'll be towing the slab in Game 1, things could get real interesting real quick. Still watch out for JD Martinez. I hate to recycle, but seriously, Martinez is the danger man for the Diamondbacks. And if he gets going, the Dodgers will not be able to pitch to him all series. I gave you all the preeminent numbers in the wild card preview show. Go listen to that for more on why JD Martinez is the slugger you need to pay extra attention to every time he comes up. Other news and notes on this series, Yu Darvish has made 2 postseason starts. The first one all the way back in 2012 went all right. He went 6 2/3, 2 earned on 5 hits and 7 Ks. The second one did not go so well. Last year, he surrendered 5 runs on 4 homers in 5 innings. Now, which Darvish takes the mound in Game 3 here? It's something to keep your eye on since he's never pitched at Chase Field. I'd also like to mention that Dodgers manager Dave Roberts doesn't get the credit he deserves. I don't have any numbers to quantify how good he is at his job. I guess you could just look at their win total and the fact that they've waltzed their way into the West Division Championship the past 2 years since he's taken over. But I just want some other people to be focusing on the strings Roberts pulls in this series. They always seem to be the right ones. If you listened to the ALDS preview show, then you heard me talk about the Astros' Marwin Gonzalez and how his versatility and surprising offensive contributions have helped Houston immensely. Well, meet the NL version of Marwin Gonzalez. His name is Chris Taylor, and he plays just about everywhere for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Nobody would have predicted him to be able to fill in the way that he did, but he did so well that he forced himself into the everyday lineup. He was just a no-name guy just even a year ago, but now it's hard to imagine this team without him. Home run picks in this NLDS Game 1, JD Martinez, of course, and Yasmani Grandal. JD has feasted against lefties. It's a big reason why the Diamondbacks traded for him, and I think he'll reward them again, this time against Kershaw. I'm not sure why, but Grandal's name popped immediately into my head here. We'll see. In Game 2, Chris Iannetta and Cody Bellinger. Iannetta is a bit of an interesting pick here, one out of nowhere, really. He hits lefties really well. He's actually had some success against Kershaw, and I would have gone with him in Game 1 if it wasn't for JD. I guess homering off of Rich Hill will have to do for Iannetta. And you didn't think I forgot about the NL Rookie of the Year, did you? No way. Bellinger homers in Game 2 here. Game 3, Corey Seager and Paul Goldschmidt. Seager has killed Greinke in his first 2 years in the bigs, and Greinke lines up to start this game if the Diamondbacks decide to keep him on a regular 4 days rest. Seager's back to his old ways after a lengthy slump. We'll see if he keeps it up against Greinke. None of the Diamondbacks have significant experience against Yu Darvish, who's scheduled to start Game 3, so why not go with Goldschmidt? It's never a bad pick. Game 4, give me Kike Hernandez and Chris Iannetta. These are 2 crazy picks. If they both homer in Game 4, I'm going to go nuts. Kike loves teeing off of Robbie Ray. He's got 7 hits against him, including a double, a triple, and 3 long balls. This is a guy who does not hit for power. If Ray gets the start in Game 2 and Game 4, he'd better be ready for Kike. Iannetta, he's just going to be that guy who comes out of nowhere and has a big series. I don't know why, I don't know how, but watch it happen. In Game 5, Paul Goldschmidt and Justin Turner. Goldschmidt happens. Turner doesn't hit with a whole lot of power, but he's one of those, more of a contact guy, but he does run into one every so often. So I'm going to at least take a flyer on him here in Game 5. Let's do a prediction. I'm going with the Dodgers in 4. I would feel much better about the Diamondbacks' chances in this series if they hadn't used Robbie Ray in that wild card game. Just the uncertainty surrounding their rotation right now scares me away from picking them to make it a little bit farther. Much like it did with the Cubs, it's basically the same story here. Arizona can hit as well as any team left, but finding the pitching is going to be their toughest test. All right, Reed, so the Cubs start out with the Washington Nationals in the division round. First of all, how confident are you, 1 to 100, that the Cubs can make it out of this first round series?
The Cubbies are playing the best ball they played all season. I mean, they started 43 and 45 at the All-Star break, but they had the second best record in the second half of the season. Only higher than that is the Indians, and they went on a 22-game win streak. So the Cubbies are playing the best ball in the National League. But unfortunately, I mean, the playoffs come down to pitching, and the Nationals have arguably the best starting rotation in the National League or in the entire MLB, but I guess I'm prolonging. My confidence in them is right about 50-50. I mean, I think this really goes up to anyone right now. And before you even start asking more questions, I mean, the fact that Max Scherzer is hurt, really, I just saw a couple days ago that the Cubs World Series odds jumped 4%. They were at 8% to win. Now they're up to 12% just because Max Scherzer being out indefinitely. He's probably not going to start Game 1, which gives Kyle Hendricks. It gives the Cubs a better chance. Max Scherzer is the best pitcher in the MLB right now, besides Clayton Kershaw. But I mean, it's really anyone's game. I have confidence in this Cubs team. If you would have asked me a month ago how it would have been, I would have told you that they would have made the playoffs, but probably got swept. I have more confidence right now, but they're just playing who I think is the best National League team. I think the Nationals are better man for man than the Dodgers, just from what the Dodgers have showed us in the past month. But I really think that the Cubs are the hottest team in baseball outside of the Indians. So it's really anyone's game. I give it a 50-50.
So yeah, what are your feelings about the Cubs rotation at this point? We know that they've struggled certainly in the first half. They've gathered themselves here in the second half, but it just seems like their go-to guys are not as strong at this point as the Nationals or the Dodgers or, name a team really. They're all loaded at the starting pitcher position, but the Cubs maybe just not as good certainly as they were last year, and maybe not as good as any other team.
Well, the Cubs, John Lester has been the real crux of this starting rotation for these past two playoff appearances, besides when Jake Arrieta was on an absolute tear in 2015. But John Lester, just last year, the Cubs had four men on the starting rotation under a 3 ERA when the American League didn't have one single starting pitcher last year under a 3 ERA, and the Cubs had four. This year, they don't have one guy under a 3 ERA, and John Lester, 3 different occasions, gave up 7+ runs in the first inning alone. So John Lester absolutely is not getting that first start in the divisional series. The real question is who's going to get that first start. It would have been Jake Arrieta on any given day, but Jake Arrieta's hamstring injury, he's been struggling with a hamstring injury for about a month now, and he hasn't been at full go, and he was pitching fantastic in the month of August, and even in September with this hamstring injury, he was still being effective. He just wasn't being fully Jake Arrieta that we've seen. Kyle Hendricks is probably going to get the start in Game 1. Kyle Hendricks, since coming back from an injury about a month ago, has been lights out. He has a 7-5 record on the year. He's got a 3.03 ERA. But the thing that is really good about Kyle Hendricks is he keeps the ball in the ballpark. He uses he used 3 different changeups, keeps the ball down, doesn't strike many hitters out. He had 123 strikeouts this year, right around an 8.5 K per 9. I'm sorry, I'm a big stats guy, and Kyle Hendricks is definitely going to get the start in Game 1. The real question is who's going to be Game 2? You have the 2 lefties, I think, Jose Quintana and John Lester, because I think Jake Arrieta just needs a little more time to deal with that hamstring injury. And also, when you're looking at this, you've got to be ready to play matchups. You're going to probably see Steven Strasburg in Game 1 because Max Scherzer's got his injury. So Steven Strasburg's in Game 1 against Hendricks. You have to wonder, is Strasburg going to throw Game 2 or is Gio Gonzalez? But regardless, I think the Cubs are going to have to throw Quintana Game 2 to give Jake Arrieta a little more time. Quintana, his first 2 or 3 starts was lights out coming over from the White Sox. Then in the month of August, he really took some hits. When the Cubs were firing all cylinders, Quintana was really hurting this Cubs team. But just in the month of September, has thrown fantastic, and he's got to be the number 2 guy. And then I'm going to go with Jake Arrieta 3, and I'm still going to give John Lester that 4 spot and bring John Lackey out of the bullpen.
So which guy, given your choice in an elimination game and everybody's rested the same, which guy do you want on the mound in that game when the Cubs must win?
Well, to be brutally honest with you, I don't know if you've read Brian Kinney's Ahead of the Curve, but he's got some very interesting developments on how we should be looking at pitching as a whole, and that starting pitching is really something that is outdated at this point. So just with the Cubs rotation, obviously there's Max Scherzers and Clayton Kershaw's of the world that you give the ball to him regardless. But if I was the Cubs in a winner-take-all situation, I would use the depth of their rotation and the depth of their pitching, which at times has been questionable, but there's still a bunch of guys that you can rely on. I would use the depth really to the advantage. I would start Kyle Hendricks for a few innings, wait till he's not effective, get through time through the order. Then I might be throwing a lefty, giving him a different look, Jose Quintana, and maybe going like someone even like John Lackey, someone with experience later in the game before you turn it fully over to the bullpen. So in a winner-take-all situation, I mean, if you're going traditionally, I'm still going to give the ball to Kyle Hendricks and in a winner-take-all, it'd be between Kyle Hendricks and Jake Arrieta. If Jake Arrieta is at full go, Jake Arrieta without a doubt. But with his hamstring injury, I'd give it to Kyle Hendricks. But if I was the manager, I would fully use every single piece of this bullpen to try and win the game, of this whole pitching staff.
So I want to ask everybody what they're most worried about, because, everybody likes to talk about the good stuff, but, what worries people is what I'm really interested in and what I think holds the key to a lot of these series. With the Cubs, Reed, it sounds like you're worried about the starting pitching. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pitching, the offense has been clicking on all cylinders for the past month. Anthony Rizzo, Wilson Contreras, Chris Bryant, even Kyle Schwarber, who's batting right around 200, has 30 home runs. So the real crux of this team of going through is, how is this pitching going to perform? John Lester, John Lackey, Jake Arrieta, Kyle Hendricks, is starting rotation. How are they going to perform? The only thing that really scares me about this team anyways is how the opposing pitchers are going to perform. Because I think that this team can compete with anyone except for when Max Scherzer or Clayton Kershaw is out on the hill.
All right, Reed. Anything else that you want to mention while you got the chance on the Cubs?
I think that one thing that has been overlooked this entire season is how well Chris Bryant has played. He's not last year where he hit 40 home runs and 100 RBIs, but he's doing it in a different way. He only has 29 home runs and 73 RBIs, but you got to be thinking he's coming off that two-hole position, and he didn't have Dexter Fowler get on base in front of him as much as often. I mean, he still had John Jay, who I think had a fantastic season as the leadoff hitter, but Chris Bryant had an over 400 on-base percentage. His slugging is still right around 530, good for almost a 1.0. He's .946 on-base plus slugging. He had one of the quietest seasons in the entire National League. I mean, I know you're a big WAR skeptic, but
most definitely.
You are a big WAR skeptic, but Chris Bryant has a 6.9 WAR on the season, so he's having a fantastic season in terms of value, and I just think that everyone it's really been swept under the rug.
All right, Reed, thanks for joining us. Best of luck to your Cubs, and if they do make it into the NLCS, would you be so kind as to come back on the pod and discuss that matchup?
Absolutely. Anytime I get to talk to you, Mitch, I'll be there.
All right, thanks, bud. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
That's a wrap for episode number 23 of Ducks on the Pod. Special thanks to my good friend and our Cubs correspondent, Reed Mouse, for stopping by to talk about that series. Thanks to you all for listening. Remember to check back in with us at the conclusion of all these division series matchups. We will have a breakdown of all of those, give you everything that happened that you need to know going forward into the championship series. And then, of course, I will preview those as we build toward the World Series. Enjoy the postseason action. And until next time, I'm Mitch Gatsky reminding you, keep your glove on the dirt, your bat off your shoulder, and always keep your eye on the ball.
There we go.
Back, gone.